list, it at least creates a profile of what a good employee would be. So you kind of want to see how do they fit together. And you might, over time, as your interests change, you can change all of this. It's the beauty of the internet. You can constantly be updating it and changing it and morphing it. So if you're applying for certain kinds of jobs right now because you see that's what's out there, maybe you edit this to focus on that aspect of your background and not highlight the other areas you're interested in if the market for that isn't so good right now and you're not seeing a lot of jobs listed for that right now. You can be a little strategic about how you're presenting yourself to the world.
If you don't list a specialty, will it be blank? Like we'll show specialties and then looks like nothing?
Right. Yeah, so if you look at, let's take a look. So this, this is the student one. It's blank. Let's like a demo student.
You can go to mine if you want to. I don't have specialties, although I will certainly be adding them.
That's right. Okay, so here's, so Bailey, this is her profile. And so it just has the sections that she's included. It doesn't, have a blank, like she has no specialties. So it just has the fields that she's included. Okay, so let's go back. So there's Luke. So anyway, so you can see though how you've come here like, okay, now you know something about him. This can be very helpful when you're reaching out to folks for informational interviews, and we'll talk about that in a bit too, but that's why I like LinkedIn for that, because you can really get a sense of somebody, their background, their areas of expertise. If you were to just look him up in a directory and it says he does tax, you don't know very much about him. There aren't very many opportunities to connect. But maybe as you read through here, maybe you say, oh wow, he works with clients in that industry. That's an industry I'm familiar with. Maybe I can form a connection over that point and comment that we have. So here he has the background. So this is kind of what would be his resume. There's a little bit more flexibility here with how you describe things than how you would describe them on a resume. So you could simply copy and paste, and if you're just getting started, I think that's fine just to get something established. But you may not need to, be beholden to the same format that we use on resumes. You can be a little bit more flexible with how you describe things, of course, as long as it's truthful and honest. You can't make stuff up or stretch the truth. But even here he has stuff that he did here at law school, his different internships, publications. So if you've published on Law Review, if you publish on blogs, this is a great place to highlight it. It's another way to highlight your expertise. And here, since his expertise kind of relates to his areas of professional interest, that's a great way to go. So even if you don't have work experience, if you're starting to write on your area of expertise, this is a good place to showcase it. Or sometimes it might get lost on a resume, or you wouldn't necessarily put a blog article on your resume. You could put those here. If you did a letter to the editor, or some of that more informal writing, it would be perfectly appropriate to link to it here. He's listed some of his accomplishments at school, his activities here, and he has recommendations. So this is something that as you enhance your profile on LinkedIn, you might consider asking people to prepare recommendations for you. So you might talk to colleagues. If you're in a student organization and you've been a leader, maybe some of the other leaders of the group could put something about your great leadership skills. Maybe one of your professors would write something, or a supervisor might write something. Short and succinct, but again, you want to be strategic. So if you're trying to create a certain image or highlight certain skills or attributes, you might tell the person who's writing the recommendation, this is really ideally what I'd like it to focus on. And so there it is. And so anyway, let me go back to so this gives you kind of a general sense. And so here, if I were looking Luke up, I might, we're directly connected, but if we weren't, and I just did a search, it might show if we had people in common, it could show me, oh, I don't know Luke directly, but Bailey's in my network, and Bailey's in Luke's network, and so I might say, hey Bailey, can you introduce me to Luke? And so she could do that via LinkedIn. So this is an older version from maybe a week ago, and he's gone in and updated it because we're showing it to you today. So So you want to, keep editing that profile, keep monitoring it, making sure things are current. Look at other people's profiles. So as you meet people who've had a little bit more experience with LinkedIn, colleagues, supervisors, how do they describe themselves? What language are they using? What phrases do they use? What are those little pithy phrases to describe the areas of expertise? And you might model your profile after ones that you admire, as long as it's honest and truthful, of course. But once you have the basic profile done, you want to find ways to enhance your presence. It's not just enough to be there, right? It's like going to a party. Just being in the room is not enough. You need to talk to people to have a presence. So I am a big believer in LinkedIn groups. It's a great way for you to expand your network very easily. And it's very easy to join groups. Some groups have an open membership, some groups have a closed membership. We have there are two groups at Golden Gate I'd recommend to you. There's a Golden Gate University Law Group. We have about over 800 members. It's alumni, students, staff, faculty, adjuncts, pretty much anyone who is affiliated with the law school is eligible to join that group. So it's a closed group. You put in your request to join. One of our administrators will take a look. We'll see that you're affiliated with GGU, and you are. I mean, it's not hard to get in, and all of you obviously will get in. But it's a great way to connect with folks. And just to give you a sense of that, so I'm gonna give you a sense of the power of these groups. So this is the Golden Gate University Law Group. And when you join a group, there's a lot of discussion, or there can be. So people within the group might post interesting articles and invite members of the group to comment on them. Well, that's great if you're joining groups that relate to your practice area. It's a very nice way to stay current on recent developments. Hey, the Supreme Court ruled yesterday on such and such, what do you think? And you might see the chatter back and forth with other attorneys, and maybe you decide you want to weigh in on that issue. That's a way for people to see you and identify you as having interest or knowledge on that area. Maybe you're the one who starts that conversation because you don't know what to make of that Supreme Court case, and so maybe you add that as a discussion. Hey, the Supreme Court, well, what does that mean for the state of our practice area? And see what people say. But people will start to see you. So this is one of our alums. She tends to post a lot of things. So now you kind of, oh, wow, I know who Julie is because you see her picture, and she adds interesting pieces to the group. And so you might think, wow, she's knowledgeable and informed. And so this, the Golden Gate Group is a nice way to connect with alums. I think the real value is in the members, though. And so if you click here on the members, so we have 852 members. And if you all join, we'll have even more. But you can search within our community for people of interest to you. So if you wanted to just search a particular practice area, or you're moving to a geographic region, you could simply, in the search box, type in that key term. I tend to use the advanced search because you have lots of other options. But let's, what are you guys interested in?
Employment.
Public interest, employment. So let me do employment, just because let's see. So up comes, a whole bunch of people affiliated with Golden Gate who have employment somewhere in their profile. Until you start to go through, and this is where having a very good headline can be helpful, because all we know is, this person is an attorney at his practice, but we don't know if he's an employment lawyer or not. Whereas she is employment counsel. She's got that word right in her head. You're like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. Let me, see more about her. So then you look at her profile, you read what she's doing. You might discover, oh, wow, we have some shared connections. Maybe this is someone I want to reach out to for an informational interview. And that you could do it through LinkedIn. It also usually lists the person's email, so you might decide to just email them directly. I found you on LinkedIn. I see that you are employment counsel. I have an interest in doing HR and in-house employment work. I'm a Golden Gate student. Would you have a few minutes to talk to me about your career? I mean, that's sort of typical informational interview, but this is a great way to find people. And my assumption is if someone is on LinkedIn, they are open to networking. Right? If you didn't want to be contacted by people, you wouldn't be on LinkedIn. So, it lowers the barriers. You should feel a little bit more confident in reaching out to people you don't know. But certainly if you know people in common, you say, you know, we even know a few people in common, I'm really interested in the work they're doing. And so you can go through and click on, you know, all these different folks, learn more about them. But by virtue of being in the Golden Gate Law group, you now have access to all these folks. So I would encourage you to join not just the Golden Gate Law group. There's a Golden Gate University group, and so that is the entire university. So all of the programs here, and you never know, there might be lawyers who didn't earn their JD from here. Maybe they earned an MBA or a tax degree. They may be interesting people for you. Or maybe some folks who did get law degrees and are in that group and not this one. You just never know. Your undergraduate institution is likely to have a group. Bar associations typically have groups. So any bar association that you're currently affiliated with, I would join here. So as I said, this is a great way. I mean, you could just lurk. You could just watch the conversation, and that alone will add value to you because now you see what the buzz is and what people are talking about. And maybe it links you to interesting articles. So the next time you go on an interview or you meet someone, you have something to talk about. Oh, that sounds just like that article I read. You know, it just basically hands this stuff to you about areas that might be interesting to you. I do encourage you, when you're on LinkedIn, to try to update your status regularly, but in meaningful ways. So this is not like Facebook, where you're just saying something snarky about whatever, the guy in the Starbucks line ahead of you who can't figure out what to order. I mean, you want this to be fairly substantive. Excited about my new externship, or excited to attend this great employment law conference, or great speakers today at the conference, so that people see what your professional activity is. By updating your status, it kind of keeps you on people's radar screen. And so it's a way for them to see that you're active and you're engaged and you're doing things that are supporting your professional identity. Yes?
You say that it's relatively private. How much do you need to put out there?
As much as you want. So
Okay.
don't put anything out there that you don't want to put out there.
Okay.
You control it. So if you don't want people to know every step of the way, or let's say you're going out of town for a conference, but you don't want to let the universe know you're going to be away from your home because you feel like that might make your home more vulnerable. Well, maybe when you get back from the conference, you say, just attended a great conference in Atlanta where I learned about blah, 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 blah. Or don't put the status updates there. But it's, anytime you connect to other people, it'll update on there. If you update your profile, it'll kind of update there. So just having some activity will help. If you share articles, that's a great way to do it. You just want to make sure that the articles you're sharing are things you want other people to know about. Okay, so if it's the articles you're sharing of a personal nature, then don't do it through LinkedIn, because everyone will know about it. Okay, so let's talk about how do you build your network. There are lots of tools within LinkedIn, so you can look up alumni from your schools, people who have worked at the various institutions you've worked with during the same period of time. You could have it go through your email, like if you have Gmail or Outlook, it can go through your inbox. I'd be careful about that. I'm not so crazy about the just blast the universe. Hey, I'm on LinkedIn, come find me. I would encourage you to be a little bit more strategic and precise and really control who it's going to. With that being said, invite people. So there's a little, click here to invite people, and it'll give you generic language. I don't know if you can see this, but basically, if you didn't adjust the invitation, it would just say, Sally, I'd like to add you to my professional network on LinkedIn. And then the person can accept it or not. If they're not sure who is this Suzanne Aronowitz, they can click on the link, which I would encourage you to do if people are trying to connect with you. They can look at my profile, look at my background, and say, oh, that's right, I remember her from that internship I did. Yeah, sure, I want to connect with her. Or, I don't know who this person is, I'm going to decline it or ignore it. I think it would be more effective in this invitation to use substance. So if you, maybe you're trying to link in with somebody you worked with, a coworker at an internship you just did. Like, you might put a personal note. Hi, George, really enjoyed working with you last summer at the such and such organization. Hope all's well with you.